the queen of fright, the lady of the night, Muse. How you doing tonight, lady?
Doing good. Just hanging in there and glad to be back with you guys after a week off and just ready to get scary, I guess. Yeah.
Ooh, I like that. Ready to get scary, right? I like it. Ooh, give me the chill.
Scary.
All right, a guy that gives me the chills because he's so good looking. Chris, the creature, Zisi. How you doing? He's doing so good that he doesn't need to unmute his mic. He's just like, I can just talk without my mic on.
Chris, you're on mute.
Hey, yeah, I'm no, I'm not anymore. But I am doing really, really good. And just for some selfish self-promotion, I just want to let everybody know that my new book, Patricia, The Perils of a Sultry Stewardess, is out. And there's Patricia, and that's the hunk she falls in love with. Very erotic, very deviant, but a really good story, one that is appropriate for the entire family. Not, but it is out, and I am happy it's out, and I am delighted to be with you guys today. I've been looking forward to this for like 2 weeks.
Congratulations, Chris. That's awesome, man. All right, HorrO with Promote Horror and Dexter, the intern. How are you guys doing?
We are doing good and we are still in one piece. I was vaccinated a couple of days ago, so I'm doing well. Dexter had hopes that I was going to become looking like him, but so far so good. So maybe after dose two, I don't know, but he has high hopes of taking my position at the top of the food chain here, but he's going to have to wait.
Well, congratulations, man. I'm sure being in Florida, you got to make sure you're protected all you can be.
Yeah, I'm going to need some vaccinations probably for some other stuff as well.
Yeah. Anyway, we got a really cool show for everybody tonight. We have a really awesome guest. If you got to watch the first part of the show on the YouTube channel, we got to speak to Jennifer Harrington. She is the director and writer of the new film that is on Shudder right now called Shook. It is a social media horror film. It is hardcore. There's some awesome kills in it. It's very tense moments. Great acting, beautiful actresses in there. I enjoyed this one very, very much. I hope you guys like it. Definitely check it out and listen to the interview on the second half of the show. As normal, we will go through our segments. I do have a couple things to say. I got a topic to talk about with you guys in a bit, but I'm going to start with my Fear the Beer of the Week, and we are drinking Hazy O, and this is Dogfish Head Brewing Company. This is a hazy IPA. Our so juicy hazy IPA brewed with malted, rolled, naked oats and oat milk. So let's try this bad boy. It's a beautiful sound. I know like a lot of people don't like IPAs, but if you go with the hazy IPA, that's the way to start. Hazy IPAs are so smooth, and this is definitely one of the best that I've had. I love this beer. I haven't had it before, but I am in love. 7.1% alcohol, very good stuff. So that being said, I want to get into the movie. I had one black hole of the internet type thing I wanted to talk about. So the movie has to do essentially with like online stuff. Everybody's on social media and whatnot. And I don't know if you guys remember, you guys remember MySpace, right? So I was digging deep, and MySpace was kind of like where everything kind of kicked off, and I don't remember I was on too much on MySpace, but there was a MySpace murder way back when in 2004 or something. I'll get to that in a second. I'll kind of just read this real quick. Anyway, this murder follows Theobald. Crystal's mother, Belinda Lane, embarked on a decade-long hunt for justice in which she maneuvered through corners of social media in a bid to find those responsible for her daughter's death. Crystal Theobald was 24-year-old mother of two killed in February of 2006. Despite the fact that her death was a tragic consequence of gang violence, Theobald herself was not actually in any kind of gang. She left behind two daughters and her boyfriend, who was also wounded in the attack. Theobald was gunned down by gang members after her car was approached in Arizona, Arlenaz, a neighborhood in California. Her vehicle was peppered with bullets from the gang as a form of retaliation after their car was shot at earlier in the day. It later emerged that Theobald nor anyone else present in the car at the time was involved in gangs. The 24-year-old was killed after being shot in the head. It remains unclear whether the murder was a case of mistaken identity, a possibility given the confusion surrounding a notorious gang unloading on what were innocent civilians with no ties to other gangs or organized crime. Tragically, Theobald's mother, Belinda, was in a car directly behind the one her daughter was in and witnessed the horrific murders. Belinda sparked a one-woman mission to track down every single culprit, even using information sourced from now defunct social media platform MySpace. As of January 2020, William Sotelo became the last remaining member of the gang behind Theobald's murder to face prison charges. Sotelo, now 31, was the driver of the SUV that the attack was committed from. Just before his trial began, he reached an agreement with the prosecution that meant the convict will plead guilty to voluntary manslaughter, along with gang and firearm allegations. Originally, Sotelo was facing daunting charges that included first-degree murder, but as the part of the deal, the prosecution dropped charges. So it's kind of cool because social media is the devil, in my opinion, and this woman essentially used social media to her advantage to go find her daughter's killers, and that's awesome. So I thought that was kind of cool. I thought it was a cool story because in the movie it kind of does talk about social media, you're witnessing crimes committed and people tune in and they watch it and you put everything out there on social media. If you have like a huge following or whatever, and you post your stupid pictures of what you're eating or whatnot, so you do all this crazy stuff, but you don't realize how much you actually put out there and what people can see, and it like branches out from people, from my friends to Muse's friends to Chris, and then it just trickles, and you might attract the wrong people. So be very careful with what you put on social media, unless you're Dexter and you really just don't care. But I thought that was a really cool story that I found as I was clicking and falling into the depths of the black hole internet. But before I hand this over to Muse on the death on the Sinister Six, I had an argument with somebody online. And I wanted to ask you guys questions about this. How do you guys feel? Okay, let me ask you this. I'll ask each one of you. Give me your definition in a brief, I don't need like a book report, a definition of what horror is. Chris, I'll start with you since you opened up the mic first. What is your definition of horror films?
Scary films that have an element of reality that you can relate to, and it's scary even after the end credits roll as far as how you think about and process the movie.
HorrO, what is horror films to you? What is horror to you?
Oh, that is such a tough question, and some of the more recent reviews I've done, I kind of touched on that. But to me, I think it starts with what Chris said, something scary. But I think it also has got to take you to some place outside of your normal bounds. So you don't actively go out, where most people don't actively go out and kill. So it's got to take you, there, or monsters, or someplace that you don't normally go, someplace that makes certain people uncomfortable. But definitely, I think it starts with a little bit of fear or scares or something dark.
All right, lady, you're up.
All right. Well, I mean, yeah, just kind of like to echo the guys. I think a horror movie, a scary movie, is anything that scares you. Honestly, I think that, that's going to get a lot of probably boost from some people, because I've been just so irritated by people saying, "Oh, this isn't scary. This is this, or this is a thriller, or this is not." Just because it doesn't have a slasher theme, or it doesn't have like your traditional horror theme, does not mean it's not horror. Jaws, for God's sakes, is freaking terrifying. It really is.
Yes.
And I have seen so many people say this is not horror. I heartily disagree, and will at me, because I will fight you on this for sure.
Yeah.
Jaws is terrifying. It scared me away from oceans forever. I probably will never step foot in an ocean because of it. And I'm even leery of lakes due to certain movies as well. Things like Lake Placid and all that kind of stuff too. Rivers and all that kind of stuff. I'm not, and like I said, Jaws to a lot of people is a drama thriller, but it's terrifying and you can't convince me otherwise. So I think that horror is what truly scares you. And we all have different fears. Maybe some of us have a fear of dying alone. Some of us have a fear of, strangers, or maybe just social interactions. I mean, I would definitely, I hate social interactions because I have social anxiety. What is terrifying to one person may not be terrifying to another. So I think it's all relative. But I do see a lot of debate about that. So it's crazy. Let people like what they like. If they think it's scary, then it's scary to them. So I say it's whatever truly scares you.
No, I agree. So I think that all of you kind of answered it, I think, the best way you can. It's something that scares you, something that leaves with you after you watch the movie. It's translated in so many different directions. So I had this argument, it got into a really crazy argument with a lot of people. And this guy was really convinced that horror movies is you need the gore. You need gore and you need blood and you need killing. And I said, it's so subjective. And there's so many avenues you can go down with horror. And, if you look at some of the classic movies, and one of the movies I brought up is one of my favorite horror movies of all time is The Carnival of Souls. Like, there's no blood in that. There's no gore in that. And it's a it's a scary movie. And I mean, obviously you're not scared thinking about it. It might affect some people. And Muse, you brought up another one. Jaws does have some gore in it and whatnot and some scary parts. That's a movie that's timeless. It scared the crap out of people. They won't go into the water. But then you can look at more subtle movies like The Shining. The Shining's not very gory. It's a scary story, other than the blood coming out, whatever. But I think the beauty of horror is all the subgenres that you can go into. You look at the Hitchcock movies. Some of those movies, they're not technically, he's the master of horror, they say, right? But they're not all horrific movies to watch. So if you run across somebody that is so narrow-minded and only wants that one thing, they're just missing out on what horror really is. And it caters to so many different people. We just talked about it in our interview, like a bloody comedy, It's horror in its own way. It's a lighter horror. Psycho Gorman was funny, and we loved it, and it's one of our favorite movies. But then you watch scary ass movies like The Exorcist, and John Grant is saying, The Omen, The Exorcist, movies like that are timeless. So it bothered me so much that this guy was so convinced that, I want the Freddy Kruegers, I want Jason, I want Michael Myers. Those are horror. I was like, yeah, that's a form of horror. And that kind of, is the catalyst of some of these movies, but it's so big. The range is so big, like sci-fi, or action films. It's just such a big world, and you have to be open to this. Anyway, I just wanted to get your guys' take on that, and I know people are so stubborn and they want to believe only thing that they want to believe. I'll never understand it. Anyway, let's get right into the Sinister Six with Muse. 1 second here. Anyway, Muse, you can go ahead.
While you're pulling that up, I just want to
go ahead.
One last thing on that. He said that, whoever you were arguing with said that, horror movies have to have gore. What about Halloween from 1978? Virtually no blood at all. As a matter of fact, I would like to, I can't even remember a scene where there was a whole lot of blood, if there was any at all. And that is one of the most classic horror films of all time. Michael Myers. Now the sequels, they got bloodier. There's no doubt. But the very first, the classic that is beloved among horror fans everywhere, I mean, come on. It doesn't get much better than John Carpenter. It doesn't get more horror than Michael Myers. So, just because it doesn't have blood in it, I mean, that is one of the most ridiculous arguments. I don't know who this was. It's a ridiculous argument. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's stupid. It was stupid. And I just like you are, and you know what's even crazier? There were people in this, I don't know, I guess comment section that were agreeing with him.
No.
I'm like, are you like, you don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, it's such a narrow I love you guys for this, because I knew that you guys just had the right answers in your own different way, and I wanted just to put that on air because it's so subjective, and it's beautiful. Like, we can go and we can get lost in our horror world in so many different ways. You can go hardcore from like the Serbian film. You can go the Poltergeist with spirit. There's so many different things. It's all horror. Anyway, let's get into the Sinister Six with Muse.
All right. So I think that this was actually, I didn't think this was going to line up with the movie, but after, I actually already made this list a few weeks ago. Sometimes I make them in advance in case I'm kind of like struggling for maybe like a topic. But this actually fits after I'd watched our movie tonight, which is Shook. And it focused on at one point there was a killer. The whole start of the movie was focusing on a killer that was running around killing people's dogs, and this pissed me off. This whole storyline type of thing. I'm like, don't kill the dogs, But we know that it's just make believe and things like that. So I thought, what about putting in, and I thought this fit perfectly. What about other movie characters or concepts in a film? This is going to more focus on movie characters that really ticked me off in a horror movie. Now, don't at me because I know this is all just fiction and make believe, and I'm not bashing the actor playing them or actors playing them or anything like that. They did fantastic. But there were characters in horror films that just drove me crazy. I wanted to reach through the screen and strangle them. So here's my 6 characters I would like to strangle. And I think this is going to be a fun one because I know we all have seen horror movies and we're like, God, I can't wait for this character to die. Will you just die already? Please let them be first. But here we go. So, the first is a classic, Harry Cooper from Night of the Living Dead from 1968. If you've seen this classic as many times as I have, you will understand completely why I hate this guy. This guy is a bully from the very beginning. Not only does he hole up in the basement and doesn't even answer the calls of help from Ben and Barbara. They're actually needing help at one point. He stays quiet down there, and I'm sure he bullied his wife into staying quiet as well. Their daughter is sick, as we know, because she had been bitten by I believe a zombie. But he's from the minute he finally decides to come upstairs, he's bullying everybody, telling them what to do. He's a micromanager. The guy is just absolutely he's a control freak as well. And he's trying to tell everybody what they want to do. And I loved when Ben put him in his place and was like, look, I'm running shit up here. You want to run stuff, go back down to the basement. And, and he's trying to tell them they should hole up in the basement. It's the better place. Ben doesn't agree, and we all know how all this ends. Nobody survives in this one. And the remake pissed me off even more with this character because he is almost directly responsible for Ben's demise in that one. So I want to strangle him. So without ranting too much more, I'll move on to the second character, which is I'm going to try to say his name right. Dr. Hyder or Heater. I'm going to say Hyder, Dr. Hyder from Human Centipede. I think this is probably one character. I don't think I've wanted to kill. I've said this before too. I think I've wanted to kill a horror movie character more than I wanted to kill this guy. I mean, obviously, he's this brilliant surgeon who's decided to use his amazing gifts to construct people into a human centipede. And it's just horrific from the beginning to the end. Crazy, brilliant film, but really, really the only one that really made me physically sick almost. But yeah, his character is so condescending at a lot of points and just seems to almost take pleasure in the victim's suffering. God, I want to kill this guy. I just can't even imagine somebody being this barbaric with people. One of the few films, like I said, where I really, really, really was just literally screaming at the television screen and just wanting this guy to die. So he was brilliantly played. I cannot think of the gentleman that plays him, but he played him to perfection because he had me convinced I wanted to kill him for sure. The third character, more of a classic character, is Mayor Larry Vaughn from Jaws. Oh God, we all know this type of guy. He thinks he knows everything. He doesn't want to close the beaches. I mean, he doesn't think it's that big of a deal. He thinks everybody's blowing stuff out of proportion. He's trying to make his money. It seems like all Mayor Vaughn cares about is money. And, I think there's something to be said that there is going to be some suffering in the town. But, there is a man-eating shark out in the ocean and had already killed the young boy by this point. He still opens the beaches knowing this. And just, oh God, you just want to kill him. And I one of my favorite parts of Jaws is where Hooper is trying to speak some logic and reason and sense to Larry Vaughn. And Larry Vaughn is just like, oh, you just want to get your picture in the National Geographic. and Hooper is just like, I'm not going to be part of this. This guy's lining up to be a hot lunch, And, he's just like, this is disgusting. This is ridiculous. I cannot believe this guy's not listening to reason. And, again, this guy was played brilliantly. He was also, again, I cannot think of the character, the actor who plays him, but he was brilliant. He was also, you know what? He was not in Poltergeist. That was James Karen. But James Karen is another one I want to strangle. And I love James Karen, but he was brilliant there in Poltergeist as well. But Larry Vaughn, definitely up there for me. The fourth character, and I still say one of the worst horror movie boyfriends of all time, is Micah from Paranormal Activity. I've also mentioned this before. This guy absolutely ignores his girlfriends. Please don't stir up this evil spirit. It's been plaguing me my whole life since I was a kid. Please don't go get a Ouija board. He goes and gets a Ouija board. He does it anyway. And then it plays dumb as to why she's actually angry. So, like I said, I would have probably thrown him out of the house at some point in this film. But his intentions are good, but all he really seems interested in is getting this paranormal creature or ghost on camera. It's like he wants to be the next viral YouTuber. It's just want to kill him. So he was played brilliantly, but his character just drove me insane. I just cannot believe how smug he was half the movie. So before I start ranting on that one, number 5 is one that I'm sure many will agree with me about, and that is Mrs. Carmody from The Mist. Total religious fanatic, complete nutball. For all the people out there that are honest, Bible-believing Christians out there, this woman gave all of us a bad name by acting like a complete lunatic the whole movie, for most of the movie anyway. She literally gets everybody brainwashed and convinced that everybody was being punished, that it was Judgment Day. People died because of her. She at one point shoved a poor individual outside to be eaten by one of these creatures. I mean, she completely and totally created even more chaos. I mean, as if it wasn't bad enough of what was happening with the Mist, she made everything worse. And I think that this shows another horror, which is humanity. She really shows how ugly we can be in the middle of a crisis. Like, I have this theory that there are 2 types of people in a crisis. We see people that end up coming out of the woodwork to help you, and we see people that actually reveal their true nature, which is absolute crazy. And that is this lady right here. She was played by Marcia Gay Harden, a fantastic actress. I've liked her in a lot of stuff, but man, she was an absolute nut here. And like I said, I wanted to strangle her. She was absolutely everything wrong with, the whole religious aspect of everything. And we definitely see that in a lot of horror movies as well. But she jumped out at me for some reason, and she's always stuck with me. And this is a perfect picture of her pointing at somebody in judgment. It's like that the whole movie. But she was brilliant in this role, and yeah, I wanted to strangle her. And the 6th character is one that you guys may have forgotten about. I actually watched this movie again recently. That's actually not Joel, but Joel. That's Joel's brother.
Oh, did I mess up? Oh, I messed up. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I accidentally, he actually came up when I Googled it initially. So that's probably why that happened. But Joel is the character in Pumpkinhead that was responsible for running over Lance Henriksen's son, little Billy, with his dirt bike. And of course, his brother here was out there with him, but he was actually, this guy right here was actually trying to help and definitely didn't mean any harm. But Joel didn't seem to care. As a matter of fact, not only did he leave the scene after the boy was hit, but he barricaded 2 of his friends in a closet to try to stop them from going for help, in which case this boy may have been saved. He actually, we know he ended up dying, but there was no way this guy was going to call for help, because apparently he had been in an accident before. He had been in a lot of trouble and knew that if this got reported, he was probably going to jail for a while. because this guy obviously had a track record with accidents, and they had been drinking and the whole nine. So it was really, really despicable what he did. And like I said, I think he directly was responsible for little Billy's death. And like I said, he terrorized his friends when they got back to their cabin and wouldn't let them call for help or anything. So yeah, Joel, even though he kind of tried to make amends for it later in the movie, I was still glad he died. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, that's justice. But it was unfortunate that the rest of his friends had to suffer the same fate of Pumpkinhead. But I just think he should have killed Joel because he was directly responsible. But so that's my list, and I'm going to stop ranting long enough to the guys kind of chime in here and tell me which characters do they want to strangle in a horror movie. And I'm going to go to Ken first because he looks like he's ready to say something.
I was thinking about it, and only one popped in my head, and it's not like an important character, but I was so angry, and you felt they didn't show what happened after this scene. I'm going to just kind of preface it for a second, but I think everybody that watched this movie and when this woman was outed, every single person, even the actors in the movie, wanted to kill this person. So my movie is The Sixth Sense, when the one gal they put the video on, the kid puts the video on because the ghost keeps, she shows him the box or whatever, and the kid puts a movie on, and the wife or the wife kills the daughter, and she was recording it, and they're at the funeral or whatever, the wake, and the little boy puts the video on, and they see, oh shit, it was the mom that was feeding her the fucking whatever the poison was or whatever. So that really just like, I want to, you want to kill that person. And I'm sure the dad, you don't know what happened after that because the dad was just so hurt watching this, and I thought it was just an amazing, gripping, touching scene, and because you felt it, you connected with it, and you wanted to kill that person too. You wanted to harm her, and that was awesome. So that was the only one I thought about.
Well, I'll tell you what, sometimes it is like maybe not even the main character that drives you crazy, because most of the characters that I mentioned were just supporting characters. They were smaller characters, and they didn't have as big of a role as maybe some of the other actors and actresses in the film. So it doesn't, there's so many too. So that was a great pick. So let's go to Omar and Dexter next and see which characters they wanted to strangle and kill.
Okay, so this one didn't need much research and so forth. This was just very easy. Anytime the movie with the name Twilight came on, I wanted every single character in that movie to die. I mean, just immediately. Like as you were introduced to that character, like they just needed to die right then. They didn't even need to say much. They just come on screen and die. That should have been it. The movie. All four of them could have been a lot quicker. Just enter the scene, die, enter the scene, die, and then I would have been happy. In all seriousness, I'm sure that there's a long list of great ones here. I kept thinking of people that actually ended up dying. One that kind of came to mind was in Train to Busan. His character does end up dying, but as they're on the train the entire time, this guy's a complete ass. I don't know the character's name. I don't remember his name, but he's a complete ass to the father there and to every other passenger there. He's obviously out for himself, and then we see what happens at the end of the movie. But yeah, he was a complete ass, and he definitely deserved to get what he deserved. So I'm sure if I could go back, if I was more prepared here, I could find some very annoying characters that definitely needed to die. I'm surprised Ken didn't say Dexter, although you could argue Dexter is already dead, so I don't know. I don't know.
He's not good enough to be in a film yet, so I'm good.
He's been in every film. Don't you see the skeletons in the background? I mean, that's him or his cousin or his uncle or some relative of him. I mean, that counts for something. I mean, that's it. But I'm sure there are much better answers out there. I can only think of people that died, like in Killer Clowns, the one we watched. Moody there, he was a complete ass, and it was just great. He finally bit the big one there. But I'll throw it to Chris after this disaster.
Definitely great answers, and I agree. Train to Busan, I know exactly. John Grant is called him the CEO dude that walked over everybody, which is pretty. I can't think of his name, but that is an accurate description. That's all we need to remember about him. We don't even need to know his name. We know who he is. So yeah, definitely great. And I should have seen the Twilight answer coming. That's great. All right, Chris, who did you hate in a horror movie?
You know, when you have a big monster and there's a character that makes the monster the good guy, that's going to be sort of the way I approach it today. King Kong, you know, King Kong's the big monster, but we don't see him as the monster. We see the promoter, Carl Denham, played by Robert Armstrong. And in the 1976 sequel, I think Charles Grodin played his version of it back then. And their characters made the big giant monster seem like the victim. Two more instances of that. Bride of Frankenstein, Dr. Pretorius. The monster seemed to be content on just getting away from humans in general. The surviving Dr. Frankenstein seemed to be content on going into seclusion. And they got this mad scientist come out of nowhere that makes them all, kind of blackmails them into continuing the reign of terror. And Dr. Pretorius was the real villain in The Bride of Frankenstein. And movie that you brought up earlier, Poltergeist, the real estate developer, the final reveal of the movie shows he's responsible for everything. He knew it. He could have prevented it. And all this happened because he just lied and cut corners. I forget who played him in the movie. I can see him, and I know I've seen him before. The name escapes me, but I remember him from Poltergeist. And you just looked at him and was like, what did you do? And,
Yeah.
Yeah,
James Karen played brilliantly. Yes,
Yes.
Definitely. I remember going, you did what? What?
Why? An extra $2,000. I would have given it to you, you know?
Yeah, I can't even imagine it. Actually thinking back on the fact that, you know, the bodies are still there and people are visiting the headstones and their loved ones literally aren't there, you know? Oh my God. I can't
in a dumpster somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've heard so many horror stories about funeral homes and things like that. And I'm just like, I don't even care. Cremate me, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't even know.
Shoot me into space. I want to go chase Carl Sagan wherever he is.
Give me a Viking funeral. I don't know.
Star stuff.
All right. So, yeah, I'm going to pass it back. It was great to hear you guys' answers. The chat is great as well. John had some great feedback as well in there. And so I'm going to hand it back to Ken. That is the Sinister Six for this week.
Yeah, good stuff. You know, it always, you know, a person plays their part well in a movie when you want to kill them.
Yes.
You know, they're doing a good job. So somebody that I want to kill very much is Dexter. So we're going to get right into the Promote Horror rundown with HorrO and Dexter.
Yes, yeah, I told you wanted to kill Dexter. I don't know why that wasn't just an obvious answer, but okay. Let's see. So we're going to kind of get into the remake thing and the usual different way that I do here. And today I'm going to look at a movie that I know that many of you probably have seen or at least know about. Surprisingly, you might be surprised that I never saw this. And so part of the reason why I watched this is because I needed to see it and obviously to talk about it today. And I was kind of curious to see if it would make a good remake. As far as I know, this has not been done. So it does have a couple of sequels, which I will now have to watch. But you know, I was kind of curious, and I thought, you know, I hear about this name a lot, and it doesn't. I don't believe we've talked about it ever on this show or mentioned it at great length. So I thought it'd be something that I could watch and see if we can get a conversation about it. And the movie is Basket Case in 1982. So yeah, this obviously came out when I was very young, and it's just one of the ones that I missed along the lines. And I've seen clips, I've seen lots of GIFs there online, and obviously something I'd be interested in. And I'm surprised it took so long, but I just watched it today. So I'm going to give some thoughts on it and see if it makes it, and we'll have a conversation if it would make a good remake. But for those who don't know, just a little bit about the movie. Here it covers a character named Dwayne. And basically he's carrying a big basket around. He looks really odd doing that, but yeah, he's carrying a big basket around. And inside of that basket is his brother. Yes, very weird. But yes, his brother is the brother. So I know it just gets better as we go. Who's obviously not a regular looking human being. He's some strange mutant head with some arms and so forth. And basically, he's obviously grown up now, and they're out seeking revenge for basically being separated. His brother was attached to him at one point, and some doctors, and with the parents, most specifically the father's permission, there sliced the brother off of him, and now they're out for revenge. So as the movie goes on, you see them basically hunt down these doctors that did this operation and so forth. And then you get some flashbacks of what eventually happens to his parents, and a little bit of story there filling in some of the gaps of how they ended up the way they are, and all those important details you need. So overall, the movie wasn't that bad. Obviously, seeing it now, it's a little strange. Things are done differently now and so forth. But I can see why everybody likes it and appreciates it. Lots of practical effects in there. There were some weird, strange effects once or twice. I don't know what was going on there. But mostly largely practical effects, which we always appreciate. This is an indie film. I was reading about it. I was looking at some of the behind the scenes stuff, and it really seemed truly to be IMDb. Looked through some of the trivia there. That roll of cash that he supposedly the budget for the movie. I don't know if that's exactly true or not, but that's interesting in itself. But yeah, if you watch the movie, some of the acting was spotty. Some of the dialogue might not have helped. It could have had some better wording here and there. But I think what they did put together a reasonable plot, and some good. There's some blood. There's some blood. I didn't really like too much was the monster. Because he's a monster, he seemed to have some extra strength there, but I thought that was a little over, especially in something that happens towards the end of the movie. But it just seemed odd at sometimes with the strength that he had or didn't have and whatever. But again, I guess he's a monster, so I guess you just have to give it some leeway there. So that opens the door. Done a couple of sequels here, and this is an indie film and so forth. So it's not attention that obviously some other films that have gotten remade. But I did kind of find in the search that asked the original director if he would do a remake, and he actually had to. This was years ago. He did have some ideas for actually another sequel, but said under the right circumstances he would be open to a remake. But this is one that has the possibilities of. It does have a fan following and several sequels to follow it. I can't comment on them. I haven't seen them. So, where the story exactly goes. But I can see, them not having to reach too far out of the bounds here. They can very simply do the similar plot here, brother split up kind of thing. And one thing I didn't also like was the whole, he went and stayed in the hotel. I guess it gave him victims, gave him people to scare. But maybe they could come up with something better than that, and maybe a better environment to work in, and that kind of thing. I know they also had to bring in the whole, which kind of worked more with the monster than him, even though he, because he was very awkward himself. So you could do that if you wanted to. Revenge on the Doctors worked. I think a redo of the splitting two brothers, if that more bloody and gory and so forth, and really a chance there to really do some fun stuff probably in that scene, and maybe even go further back and show them attached more. I don't again know if they do that in the sequels, but to see them maybe attached, maybe at the beginning of the film would have been nice, and to kind of opportunity now with the right person, maybe our favorite hunky boy who's very good at special effects.
Mind, man, you're in my mind right now.
Take a movie like this and really do something really cool with those. I think that that creature that do a little bit more with him, give him some more texture, give him maybe some sliminess, Just bring him to life a little bit more, and then do some kills and just get creative and so forth. I think they had the right ideas, and again, I've said it a couple times. Do more in the sequels and get better at it in the sequels, but I think bringing it back to our time and now and being able to do what we do with some of the special effects talent out there, I think this one kind of opens the door to doing something nice. So again, I know it has a fan base. I don't know if they want to see, it remade, because as we all know, certain movies piss us off when they remake it. But I think that this is one that might be explored one day. So same wavelengths, I'm gonna throw it to him and see his thoughts on this, and will we get a remake?
As Chris and you and Muse and I, we spend, we're coming up on almost 100 shows here, and we get to kind of know each other more and more. And as soon as you brought it up, all I'm thinking is Steve Kostanski. It's got to do this, and you make it more of a comedic approach, but you get that gore factor in there. And I'm thinking, like, man, I can cast this whole movie, and I'm thinking somebody that's like, I'm thinking somebody like what's his name? Owen Wilson. Owen Wilson, the guy with the funny nose. For the guy with the brother that's normal, and then you bring him in, and he's kind of with this creature that's his other brother, but they make it gory, and you nailed it. Like, they can do so much with it. Put it in a modern time. Brother is just a mess, or maybe you put a flip on it and you do it like with a female or something like that, and you make the creature more like a female type thing. But I would be okay with the remake on this, because it's such a low-key movie, and it does have its solid. And I hadn't seen it in years. Like, I remember bits and parts of it, but I would definitely be into this if they can make it the right way and take a comedic approach on it, but still do the gore factor, maybe like over the top of a bit with the gore, and really just, I wouldn't make it just to make it, like really try to make something of it, and I think they could do it, because the horror community, like we spoke about earlier, there's so many genres, and this is a good horror comedy out of, and still get that gore factor. But I think you would need somebody that can make the creature effects. It's got to be practical effects on this. And I think that Kostanski, you're my boy. Anyway, that's all I got.
And we'll see what he says.
A remake is absolutely. Now, this charm of the first one, and one of the ways you will yourself from that ever get some big names in there. Tarantino to direct something ridiculous, because if you think about it, the plot's ridiculous, but we all loved it. I think Frank Henenlotter made that movie, and do a total contrast. Big budget, big stars, let them die horribly in the basket, tentacles. Make it almost a H.P. Lovecraft influence with that thing in the bucket, because with CGI, with the years they have with the electronics and the computer board CGI anyway, and then why not? Because when New York City explodes, you're going to need CGI. Yeah, total contrast, big budget. A Christopher Snyder $750 million bang. That would be my
craft. I could definitely see good ideas flowing. So
Well, I actually have not seen Basket Case, so I'm not going to be much help here. I'm with you. It's one I I keep like scrolling by it on Tubi TV, and I'm like, am I in the mood for this? I don't know. I love body horror, so it definitely looks like something I can definitely see Steven Kostanski being involved with. He's great in that, or Sam Raimi or something that's gonna really kind of like gore it up a little bit. It kind of sounds like it needs that a little bit, maybe to kind of like, like I said, I haven't seen the original, so I hope I'm not like totally like, trashing, somebody's favorite movie here. I've not seen it, but I heard it's super weird, which I love. And it's really out there. So it definitely sounds like it needs to be, if it needs to be redone, it needs to be redone with somebody with a lot of imagination, and Kostanski fits that. Like we saw with Psycho Goreman and The Void, he's really great at making these creatures. And Sam Raimi, like I said, comes to mind as well. If he could get on board, I would be into that as well, because he's definitely not afraid to go crazy with the gore and the creatures and things like that. With Evil Dead, we saw that, and so I think that it could. I mean, I have not seen it, so I can't say whether or not it needs a remake, but it sounds like it does, from what you guys are all saying. So I need to actually go and watch it now. It just gives me motivation to go and watch it.
Well, I'm just now the second to last person. We'll be down at the bottom. I was feeling bad that I hadn't seen it.
I'm gonna throw a thing out there. I'm realizing that we could do a watch along now that we have with Zoom. Maybe we should start doing that with, and we can just do it and just have it on there, and people can join on the watch along, because that's a movie to watch. We can it's not stupid, but it's a little over the top, like HorrO said.
There's crazy.
Yeah,
I definitely for this as one of them, especially because there's certain points of it just extremely weak. It's like they didn't know exactly what they say, and they were just come up with very short lines. You're just like, that's it. That's all they're going to say about it. There is a literal monster that's around here, and basically you get a bunch of
one long arm and one short arm or something. Yeah, it's like a pile of
and the most you get is just a bunch of screams. It's like nobody really has a comment on it. It's just and it's like, no, is anybody going to say anything about this thing? I mean, come on. Yeah, I think I'm surprised we haven't seen it in more watch-alongs, because it does have a backing and so forth, and that would definitely be something to do.
I think we're going to do it. I think we're going to have to we're going to have to do a watch-along, where the scary things are watch-along. We're going to pick obscure Chris movies, and this is definitely going to
come get weird with us. Yeah, it's going to get weird.
Yeah. The Bookends is another one we could do.
I haven't seen yet either, and I need to see it.
Oh, yes, you do.
And like I said, so this is going to be like, and it's always fun when you get like first time watches with people too, because they're going to have like those first time reactions that you just can't have a second time, so it's always a lot of fun.
Yes, I'll get in line with you on that one too. I've not seen that one.
Me and Omar are on the same page. I don't feel so bad.
We're pulling up the rear here.
It's your homework assignment. See the Bookends.
Yep. I almost want to wait now because I want to have a first time reaction if we watch that one.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I just I've watched. You guys know that I watch new stuff that I've kind of tried to make it my homework assignment to actually spend time and pick a movie that I've not seen that's older, and just. Which covers basically all of 80s horror, and you realize, or at least I realized, how much horror 80s that I did not see. I'm sure Chris has seen plenty of it. I'd be interested if he saw a movie, if there's any movie there he has not seen, but there's plenty that I did not see, and I'm kind of trying to check off some of those boxes. So I want Chris to be able to get in some real quick news here. I'll try to make it fast. We always like to start off. Somebody mentioned it earlier. Slumber Party Massacre from 1982 is going to be remade, or that's in the works to be remade and being brought to the Sci-Fi Channel. So it seemed like something better maybe on Netflix. Sci-Fi Channel, well, I guess we'll have to do a couple of trailers here. Dead, if you didn't see that yet, that was just released, and that is coming on Netflix May 21st, which is an animated series, also coming to Netflix at the first move to the 4th of July week. Kind of just feels right. Hotel Transylvania, final one of the series, July 23rd. I would assume we're going to get a festival. Fantasia announces its return, and it'll again be virtual. And many of the great films that I saw last year came out of announced their first movie. Details on that as we go. The Reckoning announced. Maybe catch these interviews. Michael Gorman, if you don't know, viewing. For you don't know, but you will be for basically those that are catching us live. But Joe Bob, Creep Show contains good episodes. From County Hell, which will Irish themed horror comedy since the movies. I definitely read that one, and that is it.
Yeah, good stuff. I think a remake following, but not a lot of people about that movie. It brings good stuff. I love it. Let's get his review of this
movie, Shook, and I tell you, fascinating, because you're going to hear in just a few minutes an interview with the director and writer Jennifer Harrington. Terrific interview, liked her a lot, and she put together a really, really neat movie. We go back into the world of social media, which we've done before in this show. I think Host, and then forgive me, I forget the one where they all watch someone being murdered and nobody helped something, and we've social media stuff, but this is kind of a neat one because I think you're going to make a mistake and yourself a disservice if you look at this movie as a social media thriller, even though that's what it is. I'm going to bring you into the more human element of it. The actresses in this movie are great, and when you have babe actresses, you've already filled 90% of what I'm looking for in a movie. Some of them need to die properly, and then we got it. We got 100 pulls back that this is all a lie. And you know something? They're right. Those people you see on YouTube, it's all a lie. But one of them is murdered. The movie begins where one of them is murdered when she goes to the restroom, and I don't know if we're cheering, but we're laughing at it at very least. And the other two, of course, survive. And Mia, who's the star of this movie, takes the opportunity to make a social statement about the murder because the murdered girl was in the restroom and the actual target was her dog. She's going to forfeit a promotional opportunity to take care of her sister's dog. This is a saint. And of course, everybody knows about it. She goes to house sit for her dog. And then we're presented with the contrast. Mia, total materialistic, and the sister who's given up everything in life to take care of their dying mother. Guilt issues that Mia is trying not to even go near, and the sister who's passively aggressively pushing those guilt issues at her. So the mother is long gone. Mia is taking care of the dog, and the horror starts. She goes on Instagram. She goes on, or whatever the version is in this movie, posts videos, and some really weird stuff happens. Somebody starts communicating with her, who at first is just a little annoying, and guess what? He's going to prove to be quite homicidal. And then what happens next is almost a mystery. We see it, but what exactly are we watching? Because nothing's real in this world. Their wealth isn't real. Their beauty isn't real. Their extravagant lifestyle isn't real. So are murders we see actually happening? Well, no spoilers here. Maybe, maybe not. And they're gory. And then a homicidal lunatic has tapped into all of her feeds and starts blackmailing her to do some very destructive, unbeautiful things to herself, almost as if it were a penance for her materialism. And it gets pretty gory. I, I guess you might disagree with me, but it borders on torture porn in a sense. And the contrast between the beauty and what the beauty is subject to is just remarkable. But the part of the movie I want you to pay attention to when you watch it, and I'm not going to tell you a whole lot more about the plot to avoid spoilers. A lot of people are going to die or maybe die. I'll tell you that. And this is really not about the materialistic Mia. This is about a young girl who, just like many of us when we were 2021, were materialistic. And she just happens to be exaggerated material, but she's young. She's still learning. There's still a potential for great things. Now, you could wager if she'll achieve those great things or if she's just going to be a worthless gadabout the rest of her life. But certainly, when the evil comes in, we start seeing signs that Mia has to embrace the concept of becoming a real person, caring about something more than just herself, which she hasn't until this movie has started. But unlike a lot of film makers, Jennifer Harrington does something very interesting. It would have been very easy to make Mia one of those babes in movies, so you're just waiting to be killed. You just can't wait. Instead, she transforms Mia to a person that is desperately seeking not only reality, but meaning and something that makes a difference. And, 30, 35, 40 minutes into the movie, we're scared for her. We want her to survive. We want her to be okay. I won't tell you any more about it because there's so many twists. I don't want to give them away. But Shook is a movie you need to see. You get a lot of beautiful babes in this movie. Some will die horribly or maybe die horribly. You got a slasher, you got gore, and you got the creepiness effect in there as well. And if you like dogs, you might not want to watch this movie. So we're going to talk about the dogs on the interview in just a minute or two.
All right. On that note, let's get right into our interview with Jennifer Harrington, the director of Shook. Sit tight, everybody.